What's up, everybody? We are getting ready to go live right now. As you can see, we are joined by a very special guest, Jason Aponte, here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, and as well on Instagram. We're getting him added to the stream. There we go. We got multiple streams going. So we were going to come on here, and we were definitely going to start diving into the matchup between the Cardinals, how the 49ers have fared up until this point, and how we see them going. But we have had some spicy quotes come out today, and I figure we could start there. John Lynch went on KNBR today, and he had said, at least I will be 100% transparent. I have not heard the full quote, but I have seen the snippet that has gone a bit viral, at least amongst 49er fans. Essentially, John Lynch says, in regards to Brandon Aiyuk, he hasn't made the strides we expect him to. What do you take of that, Jason? And welcome, by the way.
Welcome, Brad. I'm very happy to be here. But let's just say right now, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that what's going on right now in terms of what they're talking about are things that we can't see, because when it comes to what's going on the field, Brandon Aiyuk's on the field, 77% of the snaps, right? He's running routes, and he was only targeted a few times in this game, right? I really believe that my concern with all of these things is there is not one consistent message coming out from Kyle and John. So let's do a little bit of timeline here. Camp starts, Brandon Aiyuk storms out the gates, right? Slows down a little bit only because, remember, he was locked up, and we were there for many days. He was locked up with Jason Verrett, and that was prime time battle right there, you know? So I wouldn't say that it was anything more than a great cornerback shadowing him, and they had some good battles. He made some catches, but he did taper off. Trent Sherfield descends, right? Then we find out there's a hamstring injury. Then we find out that, okay, we're bringing him back slowly because of the hamstring injury, but Trent Sherfield has outplayed him, so he deserves those snaps. Well, now fast forward to week 5. Trent Sherfield is nowhere to be found, and yet Brandon Aiyuk can't surpass Mohamed Sanu and Travis Benjamin. Something stinks, Brad. Something stinks really bad here. I don't understand it. It doesn't jive. None of this makes sense, and that's the issue more than anything. If you want to come out with a unified message, a unified front of Brandon Aiyuk is not doing enough every week, fine. Go ahead, do that. That's not what's coming out every single week. Every week is something new. One week it was Trent Sherfield is absolutely outplaying him, which for a large part, he was making more plays than him during camp. We were there. We saw with our 2 eyes. But then Trent Sherfield is nowhere to be found on this field. Travis Benjamin, who was called up from the practice squad, is getting the first target of the game. Why? Why? And it doesn't make sense. It stinks. It really stinks to high heaven because it doesn't make any sense.
Right. And I think it's really hard to make sense to anyone who's on the outside of the organization. Obviously, it really feels like there's some internal things going on that they're obviously not going to make us aware of. But unfortunately, I think part of the issue here is when you come out and you say Brandon Aiyuk hasn't made the strides that we've expected him to. A lot of fans don't know how to interpret that because there's nothing to match with that. Because, again, every time we see Brandon Aiyuk on the field, we see that supreme talent. We see all the ability in the world for this guy to be potentially one of the best wide receivers in the league. So that is a conflicting, our eyes don't match what we're hearing. And I think that's part of the flaw when we come out and we hear these things and we project it onto the fan base, because I don't think this fan base, or even myself for that matter, really knows how to interpret it too well, because clearly what we can indicate is there's something going on with Brandon Aiyuk. But is it talent related? I don't think so. I don't think it's talent related. Brandon Aiyuk is a phenomenal talent. So then what is it? What does that mean? What's actually going on? So it kind of feels like it raises more questions, and amongst the million questions surrounding this offense, it just feels like it adds another one to the top of the list.
I think that a lot of what the fan base is feeling is anxiety because they've kind of seen this movie play out before. And I'm not talking
Yes.
just about Dante Pettis. We're talking about the weirdness that's happening right now with, and I'm sure we're going to get into it. What's going on internally? what's the plan moving forward? And you kind of saw it unravel pretty quickly when it came to Jim Harbaugh. I'm not saying this is an apples to apples comparison, because it absolutely is not. But at the same time, can you blame 49er fans for having this happen, where they had a team that was very much on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl, kind of just like this team as well, too, in 2019. And then all these weird things start to happen, and then the organization gets turned back into chaos. And then on top of that, the Dante Pettis thing is something that's fresh in 49ers fans' minds. And the parallel that I'll draw between the two is he traded up for Pettis, he traded up for Aiyuk. Why are you so hard on the guys that you wanted? Like, wouldn't you give them more leeway if you wanted them? Like, the tough love thing? I don't understand it, man. If this was somebody you actually wanted on your team, why do you treat them this way, man? But again, me. Are we back? Yeah.
I'm back. There. Okay.
All right. There we go. I just think that we don't know what's going on there, so it'd be silly to speculate on that. But as far as what we're seeing on the field, the 2 catches that Brandon Aiyuk had this week were indicative of the playmaker that he is. And where I have to get upset with is, Shanahan, you dial up plays for Kyle Juszczyk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and you maintain manufacturing touches for them. Why can't you manufacture touches for Brandon Aiyuk and get him involved? That is my complaint. I've been ranting and raving all week. Anybody who listens to Sprint Right Option podcast, they got a heavy dose of me yelling. It kind of carried over. I was on Al Sacco's podcast filling in this week for him, for Zane as well while he was gone. Kind of got it there. I'm going to get to that place eventually. I'm eventually going to get to that place.
Spicy Jason's coming out. We want Spicy Jason.
It'll be here in a little bit. But it's almost like, how does this young man become an afterthought when what you saw last year was him succeed with Nick Mullins largely at quarterback? And not to mention, this is the part that really had me excited. Tre'Davious White, any of these corner covers, they were actually covering Brandon Aiyuk. Guess what? He was winning. And that's something that you can't fake. You cannot fake that. So I don't know what's going on. I don't want to speculate with what's happening behind closed doors, but I can tell you that when I watched the All 22, when I watched the games, I don't see a drop-off really from where the guy was. And that is really an issue, I think, more than anything for me.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on when you pull on the tape, you actually see Brandon Aiyuk coming free a lot. He might not be the primary. He might be the second or third read, but that's part of what you're saying is George Kittle's getting design targets. Kyle Juszczyk is getting tons of design targets. He was targeted in the end zone as well on a busted play that the defense just sniffed out. But I think it's a valid question. And I think we understand that there's clearly a lot of things going on here. But again, a big part of it is this fan base has a really hard time connecting the dots when they see with their eyeballs that this player's really, really talented and he seems to do really, really well when given an opportunity. It just appears he's not being given the opportunity. And so hopefully as the season progresses, it gets better. Obviously, when it all started week 1 and it really shocked a lot of people, everyone in this fan base, a lot of the fantasy community, it wasn't to be expected. And some of the mixed messaging that was come from that was as a hamstring injury. But he's coming along fine. It's slow ramp up. Trent Sherfield's been playing well. It's just everything as it's progressing. It's making it really hard for people on the outside to objectively try to wrap their heads around it, because the only thing that we can point to is that there's an unknown that we just don't know. And until that gets figured out, it really feels like we're going to keep going down this path, because here we are heading into a week 6 bye. And this is what your general manager is saying publicly on the radio. It just isn't not good vibes. We like good vibes around here. It doesn't feel like good vibes, right, Jason?
No, it just feels like confused chaos vibes at this point. Here's another thing I'm going to point to. Travis Benjamin hasn't been healthy or playing all year, right? Not healthy. He's been on the practice squad. First game, right back. First target to him. Why? I mean, if you bring up Travis Benjamin, here's what I want Travis Benjamin to do. Field punts. And I want Brandon Aiyuk to stop fielding punts. Because if we're going to have somebody If we're going to find somebody who's going to fair catch all these punts just like Aiyuk's been doing, then let Travis Benjamin do it. Because there isn't a day that Travis Benjamin has played in this league that he has been better than Brandon Aiyuk, and he's only played 1 year. And that's the point that I'm
Spicy Jason dropping heat.
I said what I said, man. I said what I said. The day that Brandon Aiyuk is running behind Travis Benjamin is the day that, you know, I flip over in my grave. It doesn't make sense, man. It really doesn't. So this is the thing. Words don't match actions. He's not in the doghouse. Well, how can you even say that when I just brought up the point about Travis Benjamin not even being active ever and being the first one who's thrown out there? Come on. What are we doing here? I just need to know a plan. I need to know what it is that's going on. I'm tired of it. The confusion, the chaos. This team is right now floating, sleepwalking through all of these games. And there's a world where they could finish 2-3 and have played really good games because they played 3 really good teams, right? But they're 2-3 with 3 winnable, very, very, very winnable games that come down to execution. And then that's going to fall on, look, my guy, the coach. I'm sorry. It falls on him. And here's my issue. The one thing that I pointed to with this team and the thing that had us excited about it last year, right? When all the injuries happened was the culture is good. The coaching is going to get you through. And now that's not happening. Kyle Shanahan is underwhelmed for the entire season right now. And if I would have told you that DeMeco Ryans is the best coach on this staff right now, you would have said no way in week 5. No way. And
shout out to DeMeco Ryans, though, man. He's really
balling.
I mean, again, everyone's going to point to that last 37 seconds, but he's been doing a phenomenal job throughout the year. And I think we can all safely say and polled the fan base now through 5 weeks is that the defense necessarily really isn't the issue. So let's dive a little bit further into maybe what the perceived issue is, at least from the fan base perspective. When looking at this team, let's start with the last 5 weeks as a whole, and then we'll dive down into the more specifically the Cardinals game. But what's your overall feel? Again, I think we're going to stick with the offense here, but what's your overall feel? Just vibe starting from Detroit, where they came out hot and seemingly sputtered in the second half, and it's just really they've really never gelled, it feels like, since that point. What are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, again, I pointed to coaching to being the one thing that we knew for a fact we could set our watch to, right? Kyle is known as the guru. His offense is making its way through the NFL. So many teams have adapted it. It is becoming the norm for many teams, and many teams have adapted it. At the same time, this Cardinals game has a lot of frustration out of it because the personnel groupings. I talked about the wide receivers, right? That's not good. Mm-hmm. Trey Sermon, 2 snaps. Why on earth, man? If Elijah Mitchell isn't ready to go on a pitch count, why? Why Trey Sermon for 2 reps? You know me, I don't mind the 4th down calls. Just got to convert them. That's something completely different. You know me, I'm with it on the 4th down road. I'm all about it. My questions become just more about what was the game plan going into this week, right? And how prepared was this team? Because, you know, I went a little crazy on my podcast talking about Alex Mack missing the protection on the first play of the game, right? The first play of the game was literally 5 defensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen. You have to slide the protection over to a guy named, what's his name? Chandler Jones, right? Is the guy that's by himself. Yep. He's a free rusher on
and I think Lynch. Right next to him was JJ Watt as well.
Yeah, well, JJ Watt was 2012 JJ Watt, but we're going to talk about the right side of the offensive line in a little bit. But when it came down to that first play, Chandler Jones has a free rush, and that's normally a sack if there's another quarterback back there. Trey Lance makes 14 out of it. Right. So, okay, that happens. The next play is another run. Like, I would have thought, and I'm not the mind that Kyle Shanahan is, the way you slow down his pass rush, the way that you get Trey Lance comfortable, run the ball, get him some easy layups like you do Jimmy Garoppolo, like you do Nick Mullins, like you do every other quarterback that you have there, right? And then from there, build off of play action. Doesn't seem like that happened because guess what? You're in long down and distance almost every single down. Because why? The team is not executing, which goes back to the point. Kyle Shanahan, this falls on you. Why are they not executing? Why is the game plan not there? Let's even take it a step further. The 4th down play, the Kyle Juszczyk play. So First glance, I see him run up, and I'm like, no, you already ran that 2 weeks ago. Don't do it. They know what's coming.
I think everyone said that.
Right. But here's the thing. We watched the film, right? And it appears that this was supposed to be a pitch to Trey Lance. You see Trent Williams peel out the other side, and he goes and he's outside. If he pitches that thing to Trey Lance, it's a touchdown. So
they were ready for it.
So here's my point. No, I don't know. Did Kyle Juszczyk do the wrong thing? Again, execution. Who's accountable?
Right.
You are. You are, as the coach. You're accountable. When things go right, you get all the praise. But when your team's not executing, it's on you. So I really don't know, Brad. I had my watch set to the fact that this team was going to have their play calling and their coaching was going to be great. And right now, it's a one-sided affair with DeMeco Ryans carrying this team right now in terms of the way that he's been playing, because he frazzled Kyler Murray. If I would have told you Kyler Murray would have had his worst game this year,
right.
well, wouldn't you have said the 49ers would have won? So,
right.
Look,
100%.
And I can say all of those things. We're telling you dead to everybody's face here. I do not want Kyle Shanahan fired. I am just trying to hold him accountable, and I just want questions, and he's not above criticism. That's it. That's all.
Right.
So, yeah.
And we know Coach well enough to understand that he knows what he's doing, and he should be able to get this right. Obviously, it's not the start that anyone wanted. We understand, at least my perception of why the feeling of the offense is so disjointed. It just goes back to the entire offseason. It really just feels like all that energy from the offseason just flew right into this year, flew right into the locker room, and whatever that does and whatever that means for this team, it just doesn't feel good. The vibes, right? We like vibes around here. But again, sticking to the scheme stuff, what were your thoughts about, again, going week 1 through 4, essentially, with a specific style of formations, alignments, type of calling? I think we understood once Trey Lance entered the mix, there was going to be a lot of zone reads and design quarterback counters and powers and things like that. But out of the spread style that we saw against the Cardinals, what did you think about that, as opposed to what we saw Trey Lance run at North Dakota State, being under center, running play action, running an offense that actually really resembled what Kyle did with a Jimmy Garoppolo? What did you think about not seeing that kind of transition from the first 4 weeks to what they did against the Cardinals?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? All right, so this is the thing, too, about the offensive line that we kind of have to lay some context to, Brad, and you can also add on to this, right? Blocking for Jimmy Garoppolo and blocking for Trey Lance is two completely separate things, and they are not the same, and you cannot do things the same way. When you're blocking for Jimmy Garoppolo, that ball's got to be out in 2 seconds, because there's no way that he's going to be making run, anything like that, so you have to make sure you're all blocked up. With Trey Lance is going to move around in the pocket, which I was extremely, extremely encouraged by. His pocket awareness, his presence, and him being able to get out of the pocket and make something out of nothing was what I pointed to the entire time. So, again, it was his first game. It's hard for me to say, what the transition was, because one, in the beginning, I mean, in this game, he played like a rookie. He played like a 21-year-old rookie who's never played in the NFL before. At the same time, I looked at so many things that were positive. The 49ers moved the ball the entire time. They outgained the Cardinals the whole game. Kyler Murray was stopped the entire time on defense, giving them chance after chance after chance. You convert 1 or 2 or more of those first 4th downs, game goes a little bit differently. That throw to Brandon Aiyuk on the sideline, I heard he can't throw spirals. That was a dart, and that was actually a beautiful ball. I heard he can't throw spirals.
Ball.
Yeah.
Amazing ball.
I think that the first interception, when you see it, when you watch him, he goes up, the shoulder dips a little. That's why the ball floats up. Like once his arm dipped down, it went up. Right. And that's the thing. So it's a mixed bag. And it should have been expected. For people to expect this offense to roll, and with somebody who has been in the league 8 years and compare it to that, come on, man. Like this is different. Like, this is completely different. And I think that Kyle has a little bit of an adjustment period too, because one thing that for sure is you don't want to see your quarterback run the ball more times than a running back on your team. And here's what I'll point to, and I talked about it too. Bill Lazor is the play caller for the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields started his second game. They ran the ball 34 times. He threw it 17 times. That is the recipe for success. That is how you keep the kid protected. That is how you get him comfortable. You do not throw everything on the kid. And with all that being said, he still performed well. And I think that's what had me excited, even though this game was frustrating because they should have won. At the same time, Trey Lance did everything that he could while things were not right. And that speaks to the player that he is, and that speaks to the person that they brought in. And I think that that's something that you should really, really be excited about if you're a 49er fan, because it cannot go forward this way. There's no way that this team can perform at this level again, because it can't get any worse. That's it.
100%. My man spitting per usual. I would have to piggyback and agree with a lot of what you said in regards to Trey Lance. Trey Lance really came out and showed so much as a young rookie in his first NFL start. Again, I still think it's wild that he's the fourth youngest player to ever start at the quarterback position, essentially in the NFL, or since when they started tracking it. But all things considered, again, it seemed to be there's a slight scheme switch from what we saw prior to what they executed in the Cardinals. But all things considered, it didn't feel like Trey Lance shied away from the moment. It felt like he was there to meet it head on. I think one of my biggest and favorite takeaways from Trey Lance's first NFL start was the poise and his ability to not get rattled. I think one of the things that I look for in quarterbacks is exactly that. Can they handle the moment when everything is going wrong? How do you respond? Because we understand that football is an imperfect game, and half the battle is making less mistakes than the other team. It's not about being more perfect than the other team. It's just about limiting mistakes. And I think even with the mistakes that Trey Lance had, again, you talked about the interception that was a little bit high early. You talk about the goal line stop. Even with those two pretty substantial stops for a young guy, it didn't seem to faze him. He just kept going. He just kept fighting. He put the team on his back, and he just rolled with the punches. And I think that was my favorite takeaway. I understand that the kid isn't going to make accurate throws every single time. I understand that the kid isn't going to hit every progression with timing and move through and see the defenses exactly as they should be seen. They're going to disguise things. They're going to make it muddy for him. I understand that. So considering all of that and the way he was able to operate, and again, you talked about they didn't take the weight off his shoulders. Is almost like they gave it to him and said, let's see what you got. And under that circumstance, I thought he did fantastic. I felt like we had a chance to win that game because of Trey Lance. I felt like Trey Lance was making a lot out of nothing. Again, you mentioned it earlier. There were some rookie mistakes. There were some plays that he'd probably like to have back, or maybe would have executed a little bit differently. But other than that, all things considered, the dude did not get rattled. And to say that in your first NFL game, as a 21-year-old playing the hardest position in all of sports, I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that.
And then the other thing is, you listen to Budda Baker talk after the game, and he really had one of the most interesting quotes that came out of there. He said, man, that offense is way different with that kid back there. He goes, we kind of know what it's going to be with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the point. That is the point, right? When the execution fails, when maybe the play call isn't ideal, Trey has the ability to make something out of nothing. And that's the point. That's what he did. First play of the game, like I said, not blocked up. Guess what? Avoids a sack, 14 yards. The kid's not scared. All training camp that we were there, whenever he threw a high pass or maybe had a ball that could have been intercepted, guess what? The kid never hung his head. He went out there and kept firing. That is the sign of a mature quarterback at 21, because no one would have faulted him if the wheels would have fell off after that first interception. Guess what? Get the interception out of the way. Get your head back in the game. The kid fought, and all those opportunities are right there for you. That's why 49er fans are so frustrated, because the game was there for the taking. I thought he did great. Anybody who had any other sort of takeaway when it comes to Trey Lance either has an agenda for the other person that is the quarterback, or is just blind to what was happening in that game. I thought Trey was absolutely fantastic in this game. And the only person that was better on Sunday than him was DeMeco Ryans, in my opinion. That's it. That's the only person that was better than him on Sunday. So if you would have told me that he would go toe-to-toe with somebody who's about to be an MVP candidate and they only scored 17 points, I would have said the 49ers win by a bunch of points. And unfortunately, that's not how it worked out. When you're in long down and distance, It's hard to run the ball. I get that. But Elijah Mitchell should have more than 9 rushes. Trey Sermon needs to be on the field a little bit more. On 4th down, you have to actually make different calls. Like it's a lot of things, and I don't want to nitpick because I'm not a play caller. I'm not on the field. I don't know, like all of those things, right? But some of these play calls, the QB power, stop doing that to your quarterback. Run more zone read, because we saw it in camp when he gets that zone read going and he's able to hold those defensive edge players in the mud, basically, and then take that thing out and run with it. That's really what you were trying to do. I would like to see him run outside more. And also, hey, here's an idea. Maybe run behind the left side. There's a guy on the left side that's really good at blocking people. So maybe you want to go that way instead of that way, especially when you know that side of the line isn't exactly up to par at this point. Just a thought.
Just a thought. So sticking with Trey Lance, it's been a question I've been asked a million times. So I'm going to ask it to you. Based on this point, the 49ers going into the bye 2-3, not the record that they wanted. Very easily could have been 4-1, maybe even undefeated up until this point if they executed just a little bit sooner in some of those games on offense. Now you have 2 weeks to prepare for the Colts on Sunday Night Football. If Jason Aponte is now the head coach of the 49ers, what are you doing moving forward? What do you see as the best fit for the team? Again, you alluded to there's a bit of a quarterback controversy amidst the fan base. Let's not even think about it like that. Just what's best for the team moving forward from this point out? Is it going back to Jimmy Garoppolo and putting Trey Lance on the bench, or is it trying to develop an offensive identity around Trey Lance moving forward?
You got to stick with the kid. Listen, I know 49er fans don't want to hear this right now, but this team right now, as constructed at 2-3, doesn't look like a Super Bowl contender to me, right? I need to see the development. Start it. Start the process now. We know what Jimmy Garoppolo is, okay? I don't think that the most wholehearted 49er fan could tell me right to my face right now that they believe that Jimmy Garoppolo could lead this team to the Super Bowl, okay? So if we're not going to the Super Bowl, then start the development, because here's my issue. I don't know what the plan is for Trey Lance at this point. I really don't. And that's what scares me. So here's the thing. If I could see a semblance of the plan, even if I disagree with it, I understand at least what you're trying to do. I don't see anything. Start Trey Lance. Start shifting your game plan to the guy that is going to be here for the next 4 years. So why wouldn't you start now? This isn't like a guy that's just going to be here for a year. You sent the farm for the number 3 pick, the guy who's going to be here for 5 years at least, right? Because you're going to pick up that 5th-year option, and you're not going to start developing him right now after what you just saw with a week off for him to get healthy and to install more of a game plan. Come on. Start the kid. Get it going. And you saw what happened last week with the Colts against the Ravens. Mobile quarterbacks, guys who can actually throw the ball down the field. Lamar Jackson brought them back. This is an advantageous spot for Trey Lance. Put the game plan in place. Get these guys ready, because this is your quarterback going forward. This isn't somebody who's a bridge quarterback. Why go back to the bridge quarterback when you know for 5 years you need to get this guy and get this offense tailored around him? Start the process now, because I tell you what, if you get this process started on time and you start moving in the right direction, you can still make the playoffs with Trey Lance. And for me, a successful season would be a playoff berth, maybe a playoff win, but you need to be ascending in the right direction with your quarterback. Start the kid, get the development rolling, rip the Band-Aid off. Jimmy Garoppolo is who he is, and we know what he is. He's shown you every single week that he's been out there that he is not going to change the way that he's playing, and the offense isn't moving. Change it now. Go, go, go.
Spicy Jason has entered the chat. Let's go. I love it. So I agree in a sense, because I think one of the things that would make this conversation a lot easier, maybe we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, is that if Jimmy Garoppolo did come out in the 3.5 opportunities that he did and was lighting it up and was hitting his reads with timing and moving through his progressions, and you could see a comfortability and a command of the offense. And I think that's part of the disconnect between the fan base right now is to watch what you're seeing with the 4th-year quarterback in this scheme, with veteran offensive line, veteran weapons around them, some of the best weapons in the NFL at that matter. And you still see a scheme that is really, really having a hard time and they're struggling. There's no rhythm. It comes in spurts. I think if Jimmy Garoppolo was playing a little bit better, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. It would be really easy to probably say, this Jimmy Garoppolo has played well up until this point. Yeah, he had a calf injury, so he went down, but he's going to come back in against the Colts. But unfortunately, the sample size that we have this year hasn't been that. There has been a lot of questions. We have scratched our head a couple times understanding the decisions that were made, whether the read, the type of throw, what have you. There's been multiple instances of that. So I think part of it, and of course, there's so many different layers on the internal side of things, other than what we see on the field. But I think if we're going to stick with how we're viewing it from the outside looking in, with the field perspective of what we've seen just with our eyes, it really does feel like an opportunity to go towards Trey Lance and to find that identity of this offense that has been lacking with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I will say this about Jimmy Garoppolo. He has unfortunately not have Raheem Mostert at the helm. He has not have Jeff Wilson running behind him. So there unfortunately hasn't been those pieces that we've come to know and look forward to from this offense to help get it in rhythm. But at the same time, it's almost indicative of why Trey Lance could be a better option at this point, because he can do so much and has proven he can do so much with damn near nothing. Like, he could literally all crumble at his feet. And we saw him in limited game time experience make a lot of plays. So it really does feel like an opportunity. 2 weeks, you got one game on tape against a pretty solid defense. You got a bye, and then you're going into the Colts. It does feel like a really clean opportunity to make that move from a production standpoint and based on everything that we've seen on the field. But we don't know, because it does feel like the energy is kind of trending back towards Jimmy G. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah, I can say all that and still know that he's probably not going to start, that they're going to go right back to Jimmy. Like, it doesn't matter what I think, right? That's just my opinion, right? But again, I don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo can up his trade value, because he's just going to do what he's done the entire time, which is throw the ball over the middle on play action and things like that. He's just a quick guy who gets the ball out, not somebody who's going to wow you or bring you back into games when you really need it to happen. So that's my thing. It's like, I don't really understand, man. Like, you're not going to up his trade value. His trade value is what it is. It just is what it is at this point. Jimmy Garoppolo is what it is, and that's not a slight at him in any way. He is a starting quarterback in this league, and someone will. And here's the thing. He's not going to be here next year. He's not going to be here next year. That's the thing. So what are we doing? What are you doing? Like, so what are you going to start Jimmy G for? For what? He's not going to be here next year. He's not the quarterback. The quarterback going forward is Trey Lance. So maybe if you want to say, all right, 1 year, cool. Basically, to me, you're just stunning his development. He has to learn on the go, I think, Trey Lance. And I think that the more he sees, the more he'll do better with. And that's it. Or why stick to a guy that you know for a fact isn't going to be here next year? That's my point.
Yeah, I think that's been a lot of the conversation throughout the offseason, obviously. It felt like for a good portion of the offseason that this team was going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. So I feel like a lot of that energy has absolutely traveled into this year. And then with getting the glimpse of the young kid and seeing what he was capable of, it makes it really hard to not want to move forward with him. But it's going to be really, really interesting to see what the internal decision is. I do feel like it is trending back towards Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like they've been kind of quietly preparing the fan base for that. And at a certain point, does the contract become part of it? Does the locker room element become part of it? Obviously, they have so much more information than that we're privy to. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, this conversation is not going away, right? So we'll keep our tabs on this. I think you have a lot of really good insight on the quarterback position. I think we think a lot alike in that regard. What other things specifically against the Cardinals do you think the 49ers can improve on as they continue to move forward outside the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line let's just talk about it. Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill, Mike McGlinchey, that side of the offensive line has to improve. I'm not going to sit here and talk offensive line with you guys because I don't know who is the one in control of the checks, the sliding of the protection. Is that the quarterback? Is that Alex Mack? We were kind of told that it was Alex Mack, but I don't know if that's absolutely true. Okay. So here's the thing. Right. It's gotta start there. No matter who the quarterback is, and it's probably going to be Jimmy when the Colts game rolls around. Okay. The offensive line has to step up. That's it. The offensive line has to step up, and they have to block better for him. They have to, Brunskill had issues this week. J.J. Watt, like I said, looked like 2012 J.J. Watt. It's not that 2012 J.J. Watt's in that building. I just feel like from an execution standpoint, the 49ers were allowing him to look like that. And he was a menace. Like, he was absolutely everywhere. He was in Trey's face. So it starts with the offensive line. The way that this organization is built is in the trenches. Defensive line, offensive line, right? And the defensive line is holding up its part of the bargain. Eric Armstead's balling. Nick Bosa's balling. Everybody on that line is doing their thing. DJ Jones had a great game, right? Offensive line has to step up now at this point, and they have to be the ones who set the tone and get this running game back going, because no matter who the quarterback is, whether that's Jimmy or Trey, it needs to start with the running game, and play action needs to be next. Now, the whole thing with Aaron Banks, I know people are asking that question. Here's the question that I'll pose to everyone else. What if Aaron Banks was somebody who was supposed to be there when Trey Lance takes over? And it seems like the plan was for Trey Lance to take over next year, not this year. So Aaron Banks doesn't necessarily suit what they want to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. So what if that is almost like, hey, we were going to run Jimmy this year, so it doesn't make sense to run with Banks. But next year, when we run Lance, Banks will be in there because he's a part of that power running scheme that we want to run. So that's something that people really need to take into account. Now, do you love the idea that your second-round pick is almost a red shirt? No, but that's not up to us. That's their plan. So that's what I kind of think that they want to do there. So I understand that you could have had an impact player. Usually a second-round pick is an impact player right away, but I'm trying to give you some insight into maybe what they're thinking about when it comes to Aaron Banks. Is it necessarily that Aaron Banks is bad? No, but I do think that there are two styles of offensive line that need to be played with two different quarterbacks. With Jimmy Garoppolo, it's got to be pass pro real quick, and he's got to get the ball out. With Trey Lance, you have to be prepared to block longer, and you have to be ready for those scrambles. And the same thing with Banks. He needs to get up the field, out of there, pulling in front of Trey Lance. So what if that is the rationale for that? What if that is it? But at the end of the day, the offensive line just has to play better. The offensive line has to play better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the offensive line is the glaring losses, because I've done my tape study on the O-line. I came away feeling a lot better, actually, than I did watching it live. I was like, oh no, like kind of a lot of the feelings that you see and hear on Twitter and things like that. I think it was Mcglinchey's roughest game of the year. And it came in a couple spots. He got beat back-to-back plays by J.J. Watt. It was actually a phenomenal play by J.J. Watt. Mcglinchey's trying to block down. J.J. Watt hits him with a counter swim. And then the very next play, McGlinchey is waiting for the counter move, and J.J. Watt takes the inside shot and just goes. And it's again the game within the game, and that was a back-to-back sequence. And when you see that back-to-back, it is a bit jarring. He was able to settle in and do a little bit better for the rest of the game, but then you had another 2-sequence series where you had in concession back-to-back miscues, so it looks really, really bad. When you're just watching the broadcast, I felt a little bit better about it once I went back and watched it. Same with Brunskill. I think we know exactly what Brunskill is. I think Brunskill is good with technique. I think he's good with his feet. He's able to reach defenders, get to the second level, do things like that. I just think we know he struggles a bit with power, and when you are manned up with one of these defensive tackles or 320 doing all kinds of hands and rips, all kinds of hand movements, you do see him get pushed back a little bit, and he does lose a little bit of depth. And I think that's what people look at when they say they want to see him do a little bit better. What I do appreciate about Brunskill in that scenario is he does stay in between the defender and the quarterback. He's not getting tossed to the side, left or right, for the most part. So can he get better? I think he can, but I'd also think he's doing a better job than a lot of people are giving him credit for. But that being said, the whole offense needs to do a better job, and it starts up front. It starts with those guys at the offensive line. They have to play seamless ball. And I know it's a lot to ask of an offensive line unit, but unfortunately, that's just what we need, that assistance from these veteran guys up front who've been there and done that, so that we can get the run game going and do all that. I know it's a lot to ask of those guys, and especially when you're switching quarterbacks and you're switching running backs and all kinds of stuff. It changes all kinds of things for the guys up front. So, I'm always going to have a little bit of sympathy for those guys. But at the same time, we understand that we need to limit some of those mistakes and play a little bit better and clean it up. And so I think that is absolutely correctable. I think they would look themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, we need to get better there too. But I think they're still winning. And all that being said, I still think they win games with this offensive line. I still think they can get their run game going with this offensive line. Yeah, maybe we run a little bit more to the left, run behind Trent Williams and Laken Tomlinson. I think Alex Mack has been doing okay. It's the same situation. He gets whooped on one or two plays, and it really looks bad. But the whole body of work looks a little bit better when you kind of string it together. But again, they're going to want to fix those miscues. You can't get beat like that. So they understand that needs to be corrected. I understand that needs to be corrected as we move forward. But if they can do that, I think there's a really good opportunity for this offense to gel and actually move forward. And what did you think? Did you miss Kittle? I went back and I watched the tape. I miss Kittle. I miss the blocking from Kittle. And I think part of that, some of the miscues that we saw with the offensive line, I think Dwelly would have liked to had a little bit better game. I think if you would have asked him, he probably had a couple blocks that he would like to have back. So it's just, it's a tough spot, man. They're missing pieces. So hopefully they can get it back on track, whether that's with Jimmy, whether that's with Trey. At the end of the day, it all starts up front.
Yeah, it does. And another thing I want to point out too, right, is the first drive is always scripted by Kyle Shanahan. And aside from the Detroit game, obviously the Detroit first drive was obviously ended with a fumble. The script coming out isn't necessarily ideal, right? The offense is starting too slowly, and that's the problem, man. And I think really that's another thing that I have an issue with, is that the team needs to start faster. They can't keep playing from behind, and you can't ask Trey Lance to come back from that. And it's not fair to put Jimmy Garoppolo or any other quarterback for that matter in that position as well too. So that kind of falls back a little bit more to Shanahan. Listen, you're talking to a brand ambassador for Only Shans, literally one of those, but at the same time, he still deserves some blame for this, and I would like to see him improve in that way. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to fix it, but I just know that this isn't what we're used to, especially when, I have high expectations for him. Many of us believe that he is an offensive guru and a guy like that who should be able to put up points. They put up yards all the time. They only punted, twice in this Arizona game? That's a good thing, right? But when you go for it on fourth, you want to make sure that you get them. So it's a little bit, man. I don't want Kyle Shanahan gone. I do not want Kyle Shanahan gone. But a lot of what's going on, I need him to figure out, and I need him to get them starting and rolling in early on, so they don't have to play from behind, because that's hard to ask any quarterback, let alone a 21-year-old rookie or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. So I think as we kind of put a bow on the struggles of the 49ers offense, I think we both feel kind of confident in the sense that we feel comfortable putting some accountability on Kyle Shanahan. And that's both of us coming as people who hold up Kyle Shanahan in very high regard. And we think he's a really, really good coach in a lot of different areas of coaching as well. So we're just looking at this in the sense of, it's on someone, and unfortunately that someone is typically the offensive coordinator, and our offensive coordinator happens to be our head coach as well, which happens to be Kyle Shanahan. And when you're having perceived issues on the offense, that's just where the stuff falls. It falls at your feet. And just like if you were a manager or a vice president or whatever, you're responsible for your subordinates' actions, whether you're because of it or not. So it is what it is. And so hopefully with this next 2 weeks, we get a little bit more clarity with the offense, identity, what they're trying to accomplish, get the running backs a couple more touches, get those guys involved. What other things would you say, whether offense, defense, special teams, that you could look at to moving forward that could be maybe adjusted or, I don't know, corrected, for lack
Well,
of a better word?
I just feel like just get the running game going, right? Sermon's healthy. Mitchell looked very good in his limited touches. I feel like the defense is playing so well. And at no point did I ever think, I was never one of those guys when everybody was yelling, oh my God, what is DeMeco Ryans doing? Well, guess what? Aaron Rodgers made 2 or 3 throws in there that only Aaron Rodgers can make. So don't give me that. DeMeco Ryans has done a fine job. And if you want more proof, look at the 3 quarterbacks that he faced the last 3 weeks. Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. Did any of those guys really kill the 49ers with their legs? Because that's all the 49ers couldn't stop to do. That's 3 straight weeks of him containing 3 guys who get out of the pocket and make plays. Your light just went out. Well, Brad's getting back on. But what I'm pointing to is that DeMeco Ryans has done an amazing job. And for all those things that the 49ers couldn't do in 2019 and 2020, i.e. contain mobile quarterbacks, DeMeco Ryans has done that 3 straight weeks in a way that Robert Saleh never has. And I'm old enough to remember when everybody wanted Robert Saleh fired on the first in the first year. I'm old enough to remember that. DeMeco Ryans has far exceeded that already in his first 5 games, right? In-game adjustments, everything else good. Playing a lot of man, blitzing on the right times. Even if Dante Johnson lets Russell Wilson wiggle out of a sack, that doesn't mean it wasn't the right call. DeMeco Ryans has been great. They have done a great job. DeMeco Ryans has been far exceeding everything that I thought he could be. And I think that's another thing. They're in every single game. They're in every single game at this point. And they're in it because of the defense. And DeMeco Ryans has held 3 mobile quarterbacks. And not just 3 mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, we understand, is a project. Russell Wilson is the boogeyman in the closet. Kyler Murray's an MVP candidate. Those last 2, those are the ones that you're going to have to deal with 2 times a year going forward, as long as you're the coach of this team. And already, he's done an amazing job containing those guys, keeping them in the pocket. And for everybody that's in the secondary, somehow they were able to lock up that air raid. We're talking about Josh Norman. We're talking about Dante Johnson. And, no slight at them. We haven't seen. See, here's another thing that I have an issue with. And I know this falls on Kyle. Where's Demo Lenore? What has Lenore done? What has Lenore done that is not that has put him in a spot where he shouldn't be on the field? I have not seen anything like that. So for everybody complaining about, oh, why is this guy in this field? Well, I'm complaining, why isn't Lenore on the field? He needs to be out there. He's been playing well. Again, he showed me nothing that has said, man, this guy's getting cooked. He needs to get out of there. Emmanuel Mosley has been great. And when you play Arizona, they're going to spread you out 4 receivers all the way through. And Lenore would have helped. But hey, at the same time, credit DeMeco Ryans, credit that defensive line, and credit them for doing the things that the 49ers could not do the last few years, i.e. stop mobile quarterbacks. That's, I think, another thing that makes this game so frustrating is that they did so well against Kyler Murray, and they were still unable to walk away with a win. Honestly, Kyler Murray, the reason that they moved the ball was because he has the best fadeaway throw in the league. It's almost like MJ, Kobe. I don't understand how he does it, and he puts the ball in obscene places. And how on earth did we allow Rondale Moore to get on the same team as DeAndre Hopkins? Who let this happen, Brad? Thank you for being back. Who let this happen, Brad? Why did they let Rondale Moore and DeAndre Hopkins join the same team? Who let this happen? Why? So all things considered, though, DeMeco Ryans has done an amazing job. I cannot sing his praises hard enough. For a rookie defensive coordinator, he is far exceeding everything that we could have thought.
100%. I think you were spitting there, and I appreciate you for spitting there because clearly I got disconnected from the stream for a second. My guy just ran with it. That's a professional right there. That is the definition of a professional. I appreciate you, my guy. So how about this? We've been going for about 48 minutes, almost 50 minutes now. I think you've hit every nail on the head. And I think you bring a ton of great points about everything. I would absolutely love to see a little bit of Deommodore Lenoir as well. I thought he did a pretty damn good job in limited time with the 49ers at the beginning of the year. And seemingly we obviously have a lot of issues in that position with regards to injuries. And there's just seemingly a revolving door of who's going to actually stick there and do all those kinds of things. So other than really the issues on the defensive back side of things, if we're looking at the defense as a whole. I feel like the defensive line has been coming into their own. I know they struggled a little bit early in the season, but I feel like they've really taken accountability of themselves. Kind of some of the things that we've talked about with the offensive line earlier that we like to see. They can play better. They can correct those things, and they can move forward in a positive way. It's not a situation where I see it as just like a complete disaster. Like there's no correcting it, because they have played winning football up until that game. It just was unfortunately they didn't have their best game, and that happens. It's just taking accountability of it, accepting it, and being like, we got to play better. And I think they'll do that. So as long as the offensive line is be able to kind of gain a little bit more continuity with whichever running back that is, because I think that's a big part of getting the run game going and getting that situation going, then I think we'll have a much better idea of what this offense is. But we'll see. It's a long year. How do you kind of look at? Do you have like a record prediction? Have you done that on your shows? Of like what you think the record could be, or are you just taking it one game at a time?
So, I mean, I initially had this season at 12-5, just based on the coaching, based on this roster, based on what I believed that they would be able to do offensively. And that was with me. I never was on I thinking Trey Lance was going to start right away. I really, really just knew that it was going to be just straight up Jimmy Garoppolo. And even knowing that, I still thought that this team was good enough to do that. Why? Coaching. The actual roster, I thought that they could still do that. Now it's got to be game by game. You can't look forward. You cannot look forward past any games. Every game has to be, you have to be 1-0 at the end of every week. That's it right now at this point. Fix it, figure it out, take your time this week, figure it out. Whoever is going to be going forward, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. Install the game plan, run the ball better, start faster. Don't let the offense have to make an adjustment in the second half, right? You shouldn't need a Trenton Cannon, long return to spark your offense. And that's what I mean. If Kyle Shanahan is the coach that I believe he is, that many of us believe he is, that a lot of people in the NFL believe he is, then this offense has to start faster. And it all starts there. So this is going to be a big week for coach, big week for the team to figure out their identity, how they're going to move forward, but they shouldn't be looking at anything other than who's in front of you this week and go 1-0 this week and go from there. That's it. Don't look down the line. Don't look at who's the next opponent. Focus on that opponent, win that game, move on, win the next game. This should be the only thought process. And I know that sounds stupid, and a lot of NFL teams probably do that themselves, but I'm just saying when it comes to making predictions here on out, what's a win? What's a loss? We don't know what injuries are going to be happening. Did we know that Russell Wilson was going to be missing significant time and that Geno Smith would be the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks? No, things change fast. So that's why you need to keep it week to week. Win one game, then win the next game, win the next game, win the next game. That's it.
100%. My man spitting per usual, Jason. I appreciate you hopping on. How are you doing on time? Do you have maybe like 5 more minutes? We can maybe take a couple questions from some of the guys in the chat on YouTube. My IG one. I'm having all kinds of fun over here, but you're doing a fantastic job holding us down, Jason. Do you got a couple more minutes to maybe take some questions in the chat?
Absolutely. Well, for Code a Fool, this man said 12-5. It's only 16 games in the season. It's 17 games. I don't know if you got the memo, but sorry, didn't mean to be petty like that. But all right, I got anything for you, Brad. Anything that you want, any sort of time. So
okay,
go for it.
So we got one question. First one here that we got was a super chat from I3. When are we going to get rid of Mcglinchey? We know that Mcglinchey is on his 5th-year deal right now, correct? And that will be up at the end of the year. So he is up for a contract extension. What do you think? Do you think they bring back Mcglinchey, or do you think maybe a change of scenery is what's best?
Yes, I think they do bring him back. I mean, this year, the thing that we pointed to was the run blocking. And unfortunately, that's been a little bit dipped. I don't use PFF grades to honestly evaluate my players. I don't, because that is subjective. For anybody who doesn't know how the PFF grade goes, let me turn this off then. For everybody who doesn't know how the PFF grades go, they are basically an aggregate score of people who are grading what they think they see on a scale of -2 to 2, and then they go and they push that up and they go ahead and they aggregate that. Necessarily, the problem with that is that since it's so subjective and you don't know the responsibilities and you don't understand what's supposed to be happening on the plays, how can you very well tell me what happens on a grade? But all that being said, his PFF grade is slipped in the run game. right, in the run game so far this season. And that's concerning. I mean, it's only 5 games in. We've got 12 more to go. So, I mean, obviously that can change. But I do think that it comes back because think about the disaster of where Mcglinchey was picked. You get 5 years and he goes and he signs somewhere else. You could have had whoever else at this point who would probably still be on your team. When you draft a first-round player, it's a cornerstone player, especially when it's in the top 10. So I think that the 49ers are going to have to try to make it work. That doesn't matter what I think, but I believe that they're going to bring him back.
Yeah, I think they're going to bring him back. I think they really like him in that locker room. I think they respect him regardless of the perceived struggles that he has. He really did attack a lot of his technical issues, and he did improve upon them. Even though he did have a rough game against the Cardinals, he's actually done pretty well for the most part throughout the year. I would imagine, though, you could probably maybe get him for a little bit better of a deal than maybe like a max type contract that you would pay another right tackle. Again, if the 49ers are running the football and they're a run first team, Mike actually fits pretty well. But if they're going to continue to be this drop back passing team, need a lot of mobility, maybe they just transition to Jalen Moore. They have that tackle on the roster. I think Jalen Moore's done and shown he's actually pretty damn capable in the pass game. His pass set is beautiful. He lacks a little bit in the run game for me, but as a tackle, I'd actually just prefer that you would be better on the pass blocking side because you can double and do things with tight ends and guards in the run game. So maybe that's the path they have forward. We'll see. And again, if you guys have drop any questions that you guys have in the chat for Jason and for we'll try to answer them really quickly before we head out of here. But I saw James say he still thinks the 49ers can pull off 10-11 wins this season. Do you agree, or do you think that's a little rich?
No, it's not. I mean, think about it. Again, the Colts are 1-4. This is a team that is going to present an interesting challenge because up front, they're very good. The Forrest Buckner revenge game. Hello, my favorite narrative of all time. That's what we're going to see on Sunday Night Football. But on the back end, they're banged up. And you saw the Ravens receivers kind of exploit that. Mark Andrews went crazy. Marquise Brown had a great game. So I think that's in front of you. That's a win. If you face Seattle with Geno Smith, you have to think that's a win, right? I think that it starts to get a little bit hairy when you're going to get to your Rams games now. Playing them and how that's going to go and how you're going to wind up trying to go toe for toe with Matthew Stafford and that offense. So it is very possible. It is. And the thing is, it's possible with Jimmy and it's possible with Trey. You just have to make a decision, commit, and go all in with one of them at this point. If it's going to be Jimmy, then stick with him. Then go for it. Tailor that game plan to him. Make sure that play action is running. If it's going to be Trey, then make sure that zone read is running. Make sure that you get him those easy layup throws that you get for Jimmy Garoppolo and everyone else. And make sure that you are all in and make sure that this team is all in with that decision. That remains to be seen. And I think that's the biggest question is what is this locker room thinking and who's on what side of what?
Absolutely. David says, Jason, has Jimmy hit his ceiling after all these years?
Yes. 2019 was it. I mean,
I agree.
You don't really there's not much more he can do. Here's the thing. You're Jimmy Garoppolo. The team flirts with every single able-bodied two-armed quarterback in these United States. Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold. Does that tell you that the team is satisfied? So if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, what am I thinking? Okay, you bring in Trey Lance? Well, I'm going to step my game up. Jimmy Garoppolo is the same exact player that he was day one, throwing in the middle of the field, and it's just there's no advancement. Now, whether that falls on him or whether that falls on can Kyle Shanahan develop quarterbacks, that's a little bit more of an interesting discussion, right? That's a little bit more of an interesting discussion, right? Because I can understand an argument where people are like, well, why hasn't Kyle Shanahan gotten Nick Mullins better, CJ Beathard better, Jimmy Garoppolo better? And those are valid concerns. Those are absolutely valid concerns. But I do believe he's hit his ceiling. There's not much more he can do. That is just the quarterback he is. That is not a knock at him. There are many quarterbacks who play that style of football who are starting quarterbacks in this league. And that's what Jimmy Garoppolo is right now, still to this day, as long as the injuries don't continue, is that he's a starting quarterback. And that's it. But he has hit his ceiling. That's it.
I agree. I think you needed to see an upward progression in 2020. We did not get that. And we haven't seen that this year. It's the same old I think the problem with Jimmy Garoppolo is that he's become consistently inconsistent, and that therein lies the problem. So yes, I agree. Again, if he was able to somehow string together consistency, he would become better. But because he just I haven't seen it happen from 2020. He struggled with it in 2019, even though they were winning games. He still had struggles being consistent at times. And then 2020 and this year, we're not seeing that consistent Jimmy. So that does make me feel like he has hit a ceiling as well. Rod Simmons says, new subscriber, welcome, my guy. Appreciate you. Trainers drafting 3 picks. What's the biggest asterisk on Kyle and John Lynch's resume that may get them the axe? Jason?
Missed draft picks. Hi, Jalen Hurd. Do you exist? I mean, look, the Solomon Thomas thing. I mean, basically, they had a class together, and that's why John Lynch took him.
That felt organizational. That felt like Kyle was a part of that as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, I don't know what's going on there, and we're not going to know what's going on with the plan with this. There just feels like there's no plan right now, right? Okay, so I just ran through a bunch of these quarterbacks that the 49ers flirted with, which was everyone. Doesn't trading up to pick 3 feel like plan Z? Like, we've exhausted every single option. Screw it. Let's trade up to 3 now. And that doesn't seem like they had their hearts set on doing that. So my fear is, what's the plan? Why doesn't anything seem like this is exactly what you wanted to do? And for our Prince, for you to go to our Prince's pro day and then say
our Prince
Kyle Shanahan was drawing up plays, leaving Justin Fields pro day for Trey Lance. Where are the plays? Was it QB power? Was it that? Where are the plays? Where are the plays? Please.
I hope those QB powers weren't it. I really hope
that's what you drew up. Come on, please.
I agree. I think the trainers and the injuries, that's something that's part freak, out of control. They've already fired the training staff. I'm not going to necessarily hold Kyle or John accountable for that up until this point. I would have to say probably drafting so far, just having a hard time hitting on those upper picks, right? Ambry Thomas, I think, is someone who slid under the radar this year because he was not good early, and everyone really just kind of accepted that early. So no one talks about Ambry Thomas as a 3rd-round pick. And this team being decimated at cornerback, and he can't even really get on the field. So again, that's another part of it. Who's responsible for that? They seem to hit on the back half of the picks. Is that a situation where Kyle and John are responsible for the first half, and Jason Peter and his scouting team is responsible for the second half? I've heard instances where some teams are structured like that. That could be an indication of who's picking where. You go back to the Joe Williams pick. Never stepped foot on the field for the 49ers. So I think there's a lot that goes to that. And I don't think they're in. And so let's bring this back. I don't think they're going to get. Yeah, go for it.
Real quick, Brad. For Steve O Supreme, who said Kyle was drawing plays? Your general manager. Look it up. Google's your friend.
Yeah, 100%. They talked about that. They loved that. They thought that
he went on a podcast and literally said, as we were leaving Justin Fields pro day, he started drawing up plays for Trey Lance. Right. Do your Googles, do your history.
Yeah, they try to turn it into some like Disneyland like fairy tale story, like, oh, it was meant to be. This started in Cabo in January, when in reality they were trying to go after Deshaun Watson, like Rod Simmons says. He says part B of his question. Are we desperate enough to offer nice capital for Deshaun Watson? I'm going to say no. You can go ahead and elaborate more. I'm going to go ahead and say no.
No. Who knows what's going to happen, man? First of all, send what? Send what? There's no 1st-round picks. Send what? What are we going to send? What are we sending?
Bosa? Nah.
What are we sending? I don't get it, man. Nah. I mean, listen, before all of this, that would have been the guy that I would have said go all in on. If you're going to send 3 1st-round picks, you send that for Deshaun Watson before we found out all that, right? Like all of the other stuff, right? But that would have been the guy that if we were to send 3 1st-round picks, I would have said, go get Deshaun Watson, because you know what Deshaun Watson turns his team into? Super Bowl contender right away, off the bat.
Right away.
And he's only
Instantly.
24, 25, right? That's
Right.
insane, right? To think that. So, yeah.
And then you get a top 5 guy in that regard. And then Kyle Shanahan is on record saying if you have one of those guys, you can literally survive anything.
Yeah.
Does he have one of those guys? Has he had one of those guys? Is it starting to feel like Kyle Shanahan can't survive Jimmy Garoppolo?
I mean, he keeps wanting him to play, though. So
he's he's hitching his wagon to Jimmy,
right.
Which is, I think, sinking his stock as a result.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not like he's like, oh my God, like it's not like Nate Sudfeld's the backup. It's not like Nate Sudfeld's the backup, and he's just like, I gotta play Jimmy. No, you keep sticking your neck out for this guy. So I don't want to hear that he's dragging him down. This is your doing, and if you're gonna play him, then elevate him. Elevate him, Kyle. Elevate him.
Facts. Coach says, kind of on the same topic, where does pleasing your owner come into the equation? Where does Jed stand in all of this? Seems like they're playing Jimmy as an agreement to Jed. I think Coach is referencing the contract amount that has been locked in and is on the books and isn't going anywhere this year, at least.
Well, here's what I found out. I did the podcast with Al Sacco. He had Gary Plummer, 49ers legend, on there, and he stated that Kyle Shanahan has all the power because of not Jed, but his mother. And his mother was the one who actually was the one who was like, we're turning this over to Kyle. I'm tired of the Tom Sula, Chip Kelly, all these decisions that you made. I'm stepping in and we're doing this. So again, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. I don't know what's happening. But for Gary Plummer, 49ers legend, to say that, he didn't pull that out of nowhere. And that's something that needs to be added when this discussion comes into who's really calling the shots and how did it happen. So it's all uncertainty right now. Yeah, it's all uncertainty right now. All this right now is just like a lot of what is happening. We don't really know. And I have a feeling we're not really going to know the full scope of everything until somebody writes a tell-all book. Until Adam Peters writes a book that says, I tried my best. That's going to be the difference.
Well, I mean, to that point, like if ownership is getting involved at that level, I would have to assume they're going to get involved pretty soon based on the turmoil that's continuing to kind of run rampant. Like this 49er fan base is very sensitive to negativity surrounding the franchise, going back to Trent Baalke, Chip Kelly. You mentioned that whole stint and what has come of that. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to be stepping in here to say we go with Trey Lance. And if that is the case, Chase and Gold asked, do you guys feel we could have been 2-3 just the same as if we started Trey Lance day one?
For sure. And they could have been 2-3 playing their best football as well, too. That's just how highly I think of the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, that was very possible. The same thing with the Green Bay Packers. Like you guys are acting like they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, and the New York Giants at this point. Sorry that I had to lump them both together, but I live on the East Coast and they're just so bad. But I mean, there is a world where they could have went into this by 2-3, still playing very good football because they played very good football teams, right? And there is a world where they could be 2-3 if Trey would have started the same way as well too. Particularly the Detroit game as well too. You know, the Detroit game, that was so fluky what happened at the end of that game. That game was never as close as the score indicated, right? And all of those things happened. That's probably some stuff that'll never happen again. And then the Philly game, Philly's just not that good realistically. You know, I was in that stadium, you know, they were booing loudly for a large part of the game. Crocker was trying to get into fights with Philly fans. It was a wild scene, man. It was a wild scene. But yeah, I mean, they absolutely could. Doesn't mean that they would have, like, it's not a certainty, but they absolutely could be 2-3 the same way if they would have started Trey, but have been further along in the development, which I think would be much more important than the record would indicate.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job of explaining that. I think they could absolutely be 2-3. I think they could absolutely be 4-1. They could maybe have lost a couple games. I think it could have gone either way. But I think also you'd be in a much better space if you were starting Trey Lance at the beginning of the year, and then you had given him almost like a mini preseason for him to get some starting reps under his belt, get 2 weeks off, and then get after it against the Colts. I think that would change the dynamic quite a bit. But even so, I think there's still an opportunity for them to still get this on track. And even if they do go back to Jimmy Garoppolo, you have to bring the run game back with it. And if they can do that and limit turnovers, I believe you talked about the turnover battle on your show on the Sprint Right Option podcast. If they can continue to swing that in the right direction, then I absolutely think they could do that as well. Rich says, minus Harbaugh, mismanagement of this team is a York hallmark. Sounds like 49er fans miss Eddie DePartolo quite a bit, huh?
And that's why I don't blame 49er fans for being on edge a little bit right now, because they have PTSD from the Harbaugh thing, from it turning from Harbaugh to literally now then Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula, that type of thing. Not saying that that's what's going to happen now, but I understand your angst. I understand your anxiety at this point, and that's why. And it's for that reason right there.
Brittany Brown asks, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle Shanahan oversees quarterback wide receiver development. I think that's true. Coincidentally, quarterback, wide receiver are struggling and have drama. Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan didn't part on good terms. What do you think about that?
It's a good question. It's a very good question because, again, I'm going to say it again. What's the plan? What's the plan? What is it? Tell me a plan. And even if I disagree with it, I can at least say I know the plan. Because right now, we're all just speculating at this point, and we have no idea because it doesn't seem like there is. It's again, just floating, just like being there, and there's no concrete plan. And this all goes back to the offseason. Flipping the rock on every single quarterback and then finally landing on plan Z of Trey Lance. That doesn't seem like that's what you wanted to do. It seemed like a move out of desperation that you made wildly, that you got the okay from upstairs to say, we're sending all 3 picks over and we're going to get somebody. That's the problem. Concrete plan. What is it, man? Please show me something. If it's going to be Trey Sitz the entire year, so be it. But do better and elevate Jimmy Garoppolo. And if it's going to be some time where you just say, listen, let's turn it over to the kid, then turn it all the way over to the kid and get these guys who are going to be in front of him for 4 more years ready to go and be ready for what this kid brings to the team. That's it. I just want to see a plan. That's it.
100%. And Brittany's been bringing some fire. I've seen her around these parts on this channel. I don't know if you've seen her on yours or not, but she's been bringing some fire lately because I kind of agree with this sentiment is that Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel's talked about it multiple occasions. He talked about it as a rookie. He's talked about it multiple times this year, talking about how he literally, quote, said, I was terrified of Kyle Shanahan. And the reason why I said he was terrified is because he's terrified of making a mistake. And again, you look at the drop passes by the wide receiver room. It seems like there's concentration drop after concentration drop. If you're constantly terrified of making a mistake, well, guess what? Sometimes you bring that energy back on yourself. Sometimes you make the mistake because you're trying so hard not to. So that is something to keep in mind. And obviously the quarterback seems to be a position that can't stay consistent. Other things that go along with pressing and trying to do a little too much outside your mental capacity at the time. So she might be onto something. I really do appreciate your time, Jason. I don't want to keep you too much longer. You've been very generous with your time up until this point. Where can all these wonderful people find your content? Because as they have discovered, if they've never watched you before, you're one of the best 49ers content creators for a reason. We call you the mayor for a reason. Where do they find you, Jason?
First of all, anything for you, Brad. I could do this for 2 hours. It's fine. My daughter's over there watching Sesame Street. It's all good. Today was her first day.
My kids are over there doing the same thing.
Yep. So we're good. I'm going to have to rip that thing away from her. So it's not like I'm under some sort of time crunch. So you don't have to worry about that. Daddy all day, but 49ers content, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103. And you can find me on YouTube. just type in Jason Aponte. I co-host the Sprint Right Option podcast with the most underrated person of 49ers Twitter, aka Andrew Pasquini. And I do a multitude of other podcasts and other appearances as well too, and also very much into the fantasy football thing. So people send me questions on Twitter, or they hop on my little stream that I do right after the inactives and actives come out. So YouTube Jason Aponte, at Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103, and anybody who was tapped in on the IG, you can find me at JAY Aponte 2103. And when I said upstairs, is you need to get approved from the owner to ship all of your first round picks away for the next 3 years. That's not something you can just say, oh, we're just going to mortgage all these picks. You know that there's another decision that has to go into that, right? Okay. All right. Just
right.
making sure. Yeah.
All right. We got one parting question or comment on the way out. Michael Young says Kyle needs to dial it up for Trey like he did with Mullins and Beathard. And so I take that as more deep shots, more shots down the field.
Or the more layups too. That's the thing, man.
That's true.
The layups. Like,
yes,
look,
good point.
Point to the Eagles game in 2020, right? Kyle Shanahan knows you got to get Nick Mullins rolling. And this is don't get me hyped up here because I'm about to start wilding out again. All right. So first play of the game is a Kendrick Bourne slant, right? And Nick Mullins misses it. So right there, Kyle Shanahan says, man, he doesn't have it. He dials up leak for Kyle Juszczyk, right? Literally wide open, running by himself. Nick Mullins airmails it. Now, I understand the execution wasn't there. But where are the layups? Where are the layups? Where are the layups? Please, Kyle, you should be doing better at getting your quarterback easier throws, as you've done for Nick Mullins, as you've done for Jimmy Garoppolo, as you've done for CJ Beathard. That's the problem more than anything. And I think that's really what it is. I think that he really needs to do a better job of getting guys open and as he's done for everybody else. He's just done it for everybody else. If he wasn't doing it for those other guys, no one would really care. That's it. Just get the layups going for him. It's almost like a basketball player who maybe the shots aren't falling, but the ball goes through the hoop one time and you see it go through the hoop. Now your confidence goes up. And that's it. You definitely just want to put the 21-year-old in good spots. That's it.
And this is my favorite comment of the entire day. Spicy Aponte is the best type of Aponte there is.
I'm chilling. After this week, that's it. Spicy Aponte is going away. We vibing this whole bye week. We're not worried about nothing, because I'm going to let everybody else argue about what's going on. And we'll get back to it the week after. But this week, I'm going to kick my feet up, watch football, have an adult beverage once during the game and enjoy myself, man. That's it.
I love it. I have a sneaking suspicion that Spicy Aponte might come back after week 7 against the Colts based on how the offense has been operating this point. So hey, if the 49ers aren't operating to the level that we want, yeah, that's really tough. We want them to do better. But on the other hand, we get Spicy Aponte back. So I'm kind of, it's okay. It's a bit of a win-lose situation. Maybe win-win, we'll lose-win, whatever, however you want to slice it up. Spicy Aponte, finna trend on Twitter. Facts, blow it up. Hashtag Spicy Aponte in the building.
Will you stop it?
Bro.
You know what's funny, Brad? You know what's funny, Brad? The Sprint Right Option podcast has only been out for a few days, and it's already this last one is the most downloaded and listened to one already. And I'm talking about, we had Guy Haberman on the show, we've had Tart on our show.
Tart came on.
And none of those have even come close to this, all because I was yelling like a lunatic the entire episode.
The people want more Spicy Aponte. It was
I get it. Hey, listen, I got a lot of good feedback. Not really too many people disagree with what I had to say, so that was pretty cool too. So but yeah, I just found that funny because Andrew sent me the screenshot and he's like, dude, how have we already passed 300 downloads in like 1 or 2 days? And it's just like, oh, there is no Battle of the Beard, Sean. There's no Battle of the Beard. I sat next to this man during the home opener. This beard is more impressive in person than it ever could be through any screen ever. But hey, Jabal, I appreciate you, bro, for that, man. You always tapped in. I always appreciate you. But yeah, it's so weird how, I try to stay level-headed. Always want to make sure that I'm being objective. But this one, when I kind of flew off the handle, seems like everybody wanted to ask those same questions. They just allowed me to yell and be the conduit for the frustration of the fan base. So.
Absolutely. And as you can tell, the people loved Spicy Jason. So right after this, if you want more of this conversation, you go straight from YouTube. You type in Sprint Right Option Podcast. Boom. The most recent episode is up, and it is worth a watch. So please go get introduced with Spicy Jason and then throw it on Twitter, and let's get that thing trending. You know the vibes.
No.
We appreciate you, Jason. I
Brad.
really do enjoy having you come on, and you're a professional of all professionals. Even when all my things are dying in front of me, you just kept the show rolling. I love it.
I got you.
So
you know what it is, Brad.
we're absolutely going to keep this going. I'm going to bring you on here, and if you don't hear from me, you know what to do. You invite yourself.
Oh yeah,
and I say
I'm gonna bully.
You're absolutely right.
I'm gonna cyberbully you on the timeline.
Hey,
and I'm gonna be like,
it happens sometimes.
Brad's big time in me. Brad's big time in me, and doesn't want me on his show anymore.
He doesn't want me on the show anymore. He's big time with me. So again, bully me. If my guys too in the chat, if Jason isn't on here next week, bully me to get his butt over here.
You heard him.
So appreciate everyone who hopped in the show. We were doing some pretty solid numbers throughout, so appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Of course, if you like and subscribe to the channel, helps me, helps the channel. Like and subscribe to my boy Jason Aponte's channel as well. Find him on Twitter.
Not top 10 punters. Why are you? Let it go.
What am I missing? Let's go. Instant. Right off the rip.
All right.
Top 10 punters.
Look. Number 1, don't care. Number 2, don't care. Number 3, don't care. Look, Mitch Wisnowski only punted twice in this game. Beautiful thing. He has to punt less.
Facts. We want our offense operating so well that Mitch Wisnowski doesn't even exist.
That you start to yell about why did you take someone in the fourth? Yeah, Mitch has been cooking me all year. Ray's right, man. Every time a punt goes through the timeline, and not only just on Twitter, on IG, lights up, and like that Adrian Broner, that Adrian Broner meme? I ain't gonna lie, I've been getting cooked.
Bro. And something tells me it's just gonna keep on rolling throughout the year. You got a nice brand going for yourself.
I'm gonna go with the joke.
Yeah, I love it. You got all Jason. You're a saint. You're a walking meme, damn near at this point, and you're just Spicy Jason, man. You're just a vibe. So appreciate you always coming on, and we'll absolutely be doing this again. Appreciate everyone for hopped on, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.